The skies above Arathon burned in shades of copper and violet as the twin suns drifted toward the horizon. The alien world was beautiful but harsh, filled with storms that rolled across the plains like great beasts. To the people of Arathon, survival was not just a habit, it was a duty. Among them was Kellis, a proud warrior of the Arathi. She was tall, with scales that shimmered faintly under the suns, and eyes like molten silver. Kellis had trained all her life to defend her people from outsiders. For generations, the Arathi had fought against invaders who came to steal their resources, their land, and sometimes even their people. Among those invaders were humans. Kellis had grown up listening to the old stories of humans, strange creatures from Earth who spread across the stars like fire. They were clever, fast, to adapt, and hungry for power. Some said humans were dangerous because they never stopped trying, even when defeat should have broken them. Others said humans were cursed, bringing war wherever they went. Kellis believed both. She carried these stories in her heart, carved as deep as any scar. To her, humans were not to be trusted. They were unpredictable, chaotic, and selfish. No Arathi warrior worth their honor would ever call a human friend. But fate often enjoyed proving warriors wrong. The arrivalet began with a streak of fire cutting across the sky. At first, Kellis thought it was only a meteor. The Arathi plains often saw such things, sparks falling from the endless black above. But this one did not fade. It grew brighter, larger. And soon she realized it was not falling, it was landing. A ship. The great vessel slammed into the ground beyond the ridge. Fire sprang into the air. Kellis had been scouting with her patrol that day, searching for signs of raiders along the border. The sight of the burning craft made her tense. "Human craft," muttered Jaren, her second in command. His crest of scales lifted in alarm. "We should destroy it before they crawl out." Kellis hesitated. Normally, she would have agreed, but the crash had been too violent. She could see smoke pouring from the wreck, metal twisted and broken. Whoever was inside had not landed by choice. "Hold position," Kellis ordered. Her voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. "We see who survived. Then we decide." Her warriors exchanged uneasy glances, but none disobeyed. Together, they approached the wreck. The ship lay half buried in the dirt, its hull torn open like the shell of a broken beast. Sparks leaped from exposed wires, and fire licked the ground. The air smelled of burning oil. Kellis gripped her spear tighter. She did not trust machines, especially not human ones. Then she heard it. A voice, weak, strained, but clear. "Help. Someone please." The word "please" startled her. It was not the cry of a raider demanding tribute. It was the plea of someone clinging to life. The soldier they found him half-pinned under the wreckage. A man, dressed in armor scorched by fire, his helmet cracked open to reveal a face smeared with blood and ash. His eyes fluttered open as Kellis stepped closer. And for the first time in her life, she met the gaze of a human. The soldier was young, his features rough but determined. He struggled to breathe, but when he saw her silver eyes, he tried to speak again. "Don't. Leave me." Jaren raised his blade. "Let me finish him." Elise did not answer at once. She stared at the man, her heart caught in a strange rhythm. He was fragile, she thought. His body did not carry the armor of scales, nor the strength of an Arathi warrior. Yet something in his eyes refused to surrender. She should have hated him. She should have allowed Jaren to strike. But her instincts told her this soldier was different. "No," Kellis said at last. Her warriors turned to her in shock. "He is wounded," she continued, forcing her voice to stay calm. "If we kill him now, we gain nothing. If we save him, perhaps we learn why he came. He would risk our people for him." Jaren hissed. Kellis did not look away from the human. "I would risk nothing. But I will not let a wounded enemy die without knowing his purpose." It was only half true. Deep down, something else stirred in her, a curiosity she could not explain. The decision, it took all their strength to lift the wreckage and free the soldier. He cried out in pain as they pulled him clear, his leg bent at a wrong angle. Kellis ordered her warriors to carry him back to their camp. Jaren muttered the whole way, but he obeyed. When they returned, the camp erupted with questions. The sight of a human among them drew anger, fear, and suspicion. The elders demanded Kellis explain herself. He fell from the sky, she told them. He may hold knowledge. We will keep him alive until we learn the truth. And if he is a spy? One elder asked. Then I will end him myself. Kellis said coldly. The elders were not satisfied, but Kellis's reputation carried weight. She had never failed in battle, never shown weakness. If she said the human lived for now, then so it would be. The soldier was placed in a guarded tent. He drifted in and out of consciousness, whispering words in his strange tongue. Sometimes Kellis understood him. Sometimes she did not. But every time she looked at him, she wondered why she had stopped Jaren's blade. Humans were dangerous. That was the truth. Yet this one seemed fragile, even lost. Why, then, did she feel as if he might change something far greater than his own fate? The first night that night, as the camp quieted under the twin moons, Kellis sat outside the tent where the soldier rested. Her mind refused to calm. She replayed the moment of their eyes meeting, the sound of his voice asking her not to leave him. It unsettled her. She was a warrior. Her life was meant for duty, not doubt. And yet for the first time, she wondered if the stories she had been told about humans were only half the truth. Inside the tent, the soldier stirred. He whispered again, this time more clearly. My name is Daniel? Kellis's breath caught. The first bridge between them, she did not answer. Not yet, but deep in her heart, something shifted. She had fought against trusting humans all her life. But now one lay among her people, and his survival rested in her hands. And perhaps, just perhaps, the universe had brought them together for a reason she did not yet understand. The twin suns rose again, spreading light across the Arathi camp. Warriors moved with purpose, sharpening their blades, training in the open yards or preparing for patrol. But though life seemed normal, every mind carried the same thought. There was a human among them. Daniel Kalas stood outside the guarded tent where he lay. The flap opened slightly, letting her see inside. He rested on a mat, his body wrapped in simple bandages. His breathing was rough, but steady. She had checked on him more times than she wished to admit. Something about him drew her attention, though she told herself it was only duty. She was responsible for his survival, nothing more. Still, her heart argued otherwise. The camp's distrust, the people were restless. Everywhere Khalees walked, she felt their eyes. Warriors muttered as she passed, questioning her choice to keep the human alive. Elders whispered that she had grown soft. At midday, Jaren confronted her. You risk too much, Khalees, he said. His voice was sharp, his silver crest standing tall. This human is no friend. He is an enemy. Even if he looks weak, he may carry secrets, weapons, tricks we cannot see. Why do you protect him? Khalees's gaze was calm. Because knowledge is more powerful than fear. He may tell us why he came, or he may destroy us, not while he breathes under my watch. Jaren narrowed his eyes but said nothing more. He was loyal, but his distrust of the human ran deep. Khalees knew he was not alone. The weight of the camp's judgment pressed on her shoulders. Yet she did not waver. For reasons she could not explain, she wanted to hear Daniel speak again. The awakening by nightfall, Daniel stirred. His eyes opened slowly, blinking against the dim light of the oil lamps. He groaned, trying to sit up, but pain kept him down. Khalees entered the tent, her spear in hand, though she lowered its tip. She studied him in silence before speaking. You live. Daniel's head turned toward her voice. He coughed before answering, his words broken, but clear enough. Where? Am I? You are in Arathi lands, Khalees said. Among my people. You crashed from the sky. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, then gave a weak laugh. Figures. I never liked flying. Khalees tilted her head. His humor in such a state puzzled her. Most beings in his place would have begged for mercy or demanded release. But Daniel seemed different, tired. Yes, but not broken. She stepped closer. Why were you here, human? What brought you to this world? Daniel's gaze met hers. For the first time, she saw his eyes fully blue like the oceans she had only read about in ancient records. My ship was part of a patrol. We were attacked. I don't know what happened after the explosion. I woke up here. His words were honest, at least to her ears. But Kellis did not trust easily, and your mission. What do humans want with Erethan? Daniel shook his head. I don't even know where this is. I wasn't sent here. I'm just a soldier. Just one man trying to stay alive. Kellis studied him carefully. She wanted to find lies, but she saw only exhaustion. You are alive because I chose to spare you, she said finally. Her voice was firm, but not unkind. Do not waste that gift. Daniel's lips curved into a faint smile. Then I owe you my life. The words made her chest tighten, though she kept her face cold. She was not ready to admit the weight of his gratitude. The clash of worlds in the days that followed, Daniel slowly recovered. Kellis visited often, bringing him food and water. At first, the camp healers had refused to touch him, fearing his strange human blood. So Kellis herself tended to his wounds. Daniel spoke little at first, but his strength returned to him. He began to ask questions. Why do your people live in tents when you could build stone cities? Kellis frowned at the question. Because we move with the storms. Stone does not bend, but our way does. To survive, we must follow the land, not chain it. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. Back on Earth, we chained the land. We cut mountains, dug oceans, built towers that touched the sky. Sometimes, I wonder if we lost something by doing that. Kellis had not expected such words. They were not the words of a greedy invader. They were the words of someone who understood loss. Another time, Daniel asked, Why do your warriors mark their arms with those lines? Kellis looked at her own forearm, where scar-like ridges had been carved long ago. Each mark is a victory. A reminder of battles survived. He touched his own arm, bare of such symbols. Humans. We wear metals. Cloth and metal, but we don't cut it into our skin. Because you fear pain? Daniel chuckled. No, because we forget too, Isley. Your exchanges grew longer. Kellis still did not trust him fully, but she found herself listening more than she expected. His way of speaking was strange, but there was wisdom hidden in his simple words. And sometimes when he laughed, she felt warmth spread through her chest, shadows of doubt, but not all was peace. One evening, Kellis found Jaren waiting for her outside the tent. His expression was grim. The elders grow restless, he warned. They say you are blinded by this human, that you spend more time with him than with your own people. Khalees's jaw tightened. I do what must be done, or what your heart desires, Jaren asked quietly. The question cut her deeper than any blade. She wanted to deny it, but her silence betrayed her. Jaren lowered his voice. Be careful, Kellis. The others may not forgive you if you choose him over us. Khalees did not answer. She only walked past him, her mind heavy with doubt. The gesture the next morning. Kellis entered the tent to find Daniel sitting upright for the first time. He looked pale, but stronger. In his hands was something small woven grass, shaped into a rough figure. He looked up when she entered. I made this. To say thank you. It's not much, but it's what I can do. He handed her the little figure. It was clumsy, uneven, but it carried effort. Kellis stared at it in silence. No human had ever offered her a gift before. No enemy had ever thought to show gratitude. She took it carefully, her fingers brushing his. The touch was brief, but it sent a strange spark through her. Why? She asked softly. Why give this to me? Daniel smiled faintly. Because you didn't have to save me. But you did. And I won't forget it. Kellis turned the figure in her hands, her heart unsettled. She was a warrior of the Arathi. She had been trained to hate, to distrust, to fight. And yet, in this simple gesture, she felt something shift. Something she had long resisted. Perhaps humans were dangerous. Perhaps they were reckless. But this one, the soldier named Daniel, carried a truth she could not ignore. He was no longer just an enemy. He was becoming something far more complicated. The Arathi camp was restless. Days had passed since the crash, but the presence of Daniel still unsettled everyone. Wherever Khalees walked, she felt the weight of eyes following her. Whispers filled the air. Some called her reckless. Others said she was betraying her duty. Khalees ignored them outwardly, but inside her heart was uneasy. She had saved Daniel because she believed he carried value. Yet the longer he stayed, the more she realized her reasons were not only about knowledge, it was something else. Something harder to admit. The elders' summons one morning. Khalees was called to the elders' circle. The council fire burned low, its smoke rising into the sky. The oldest among them, Elder Riven, fixed Khalees with sharp eyes. "You keep a human among us," he said. His voice was like stone, heavy and unyielding. "Explain yourself." Khalees stood tall, her spear at her side. He fell from the sky. "He was wounded. I chose to spare him to learn why he came." "What have you learned?" Riven demanded. "That he was not sent to invade. His ship was attacked. He is a soldier, but he is alone. He is no threat." Another elder leaned forward. "You speak as though you believe him, yet he is human. Can their kind ever be trusted?" Khalees met their gazes one by one. "I trust what I have seen. He has shown no deception. He is weak, yet he does not beg. He is lost, yet he does not surrender. If he wished to harm us, he would have tried by now." The circle murmured, some in agreement, most in doubt. Elder Riven struck his staff against the ground. "Your heart clouds your judgment, Khalees. You see only what you wish to see. If the human remains, then he must prove himself. He must show with action, not words, that he is not our enemy." Khalees's hands tightened around her spear. She understood the test. Daniel's fate was no longer hers to protect. The whole camp demanded proof. Daniel's recovery. When Khalees returned to the tent, Daniel was practicing standing. His leg, though still stiff, bore his weight. He looked up at her with a grin. "Not bad for a man who fell out of the sky, right?" Khalees's lips almost curved into a smile, but she held it back. "The elders demand that you prove yourself." Daniel blinked. "Prove myself? How?" "You must show that you are not a danger, that you can live among us without betrayal." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm not sure what I can do. I don't know your ways." Khalees studied him for a moment, then spoke softly. "Then learn." From that day, she stayed by his side, teaching him the basics of Arathi life. She showed him how to light the oil lamps with resin, how to clean and sharpen tools, how to move silently across the plains. Daniel struggled at first, his human hands clumsy compared to the trained precision of the Arathi. Yet he refused to give up. Every failure only pushed him to try again. "You learn slowly," Khalees remarked. One evening after he dropped a spear for the third time, Daniel laughed breathlessly. "Maybe, but I learn." She could not deny it. He did learn. And more importantly, he never surrendered. The storm hunt, the chance for Daniel to prove himself, came sooner than expected. A storm beast had been sighted near the hunting grounds. These creatures were massive, armored in thick hides, with horns like blades. They often attacked herds, and sometimes even villages if left alone. The elders declared a hunt. Warriors prepared their spears and shields, ready to bring down the beast. Kale as planned to join, as she always did. But to her surprise, Daniel stepped forward. "I'll come too," he said. The camp erupted in laughter. Some mocked him openly. A human against a storm beast? He will be crushed before he takes one step. Even Jaren sneered. "Stay in your tent, human. You are weak. This is no place for you." But Daniel did not back down. His eyes stayed steady. "If I have to prove myself, then I'll do it out there, not sitting in a tent. Let me fight." Khalees's heart tightened. She wanted to stop him, to tell him he was not ready. But when she looked at his face, she saw the same fire she had seen when she first met his eyes. The fire of someone who refused to give in. She turned to the elders. "Let him come. If he fails, then you will have your answer." The elders exchanged uneasy looks but agreed. The The warriors moved across the plains, their silhouettes sharp against the copper sky. Daniel walked among them, gripping a borrowed spear. His steps were uneven, but his eyes stayed forward. Khalees walked near him, her presence silent support. She did not say the words aloud, but her heart whispered, "Do not fall, human." They found the storm beast near the cliffs. It was enormous, its hide scarred from many battles. The creature bellowed, its roar shaking the ground. The warriors spread out, circling it. Spears flew, striking the beast's thick hide, but it barely slowed. It charged, horns lowered, scattering fighters aside. Daniel froze for an instant, then forced himself to move. He remembered Kellis's lessons, watched the beast's eyes, its shoulders, the way it leaned before a strike. He waited, gripping the spear with both hands. The storm beast turned toward him. It thundered forward, jaws wide. "Daniel," Kellis shouted, but he did not run. Instead, he stepped aside at the last moment, driving the spear into the beast's flank. The weapon sank deep, and though it did not kill, it slowed the monster long enough for Kellis and the others to strike. Together, they brought the beast down, their spears piercing until it collapsed with a final roar. When the dust settled, Daniel stood among them, blood on his face, but alive. The camp watched in silence as the warriors returned with the beast's horns. Daniel walked beside them, limping, exhausted, but holding his head high. For the first time, no one laughed at him. A bond forged that night. The camp celebrated the hunt. Fires blazed, songs rose into the air, and the meat of the storm beast was shared. Daniel sat quietly, apart from the crowd, until Kellis approached him. She placed a small piece of the beast's horn in his hands. "This is yours," she said, "a sign of victory." Daniel looked at it with wide eyes. "I don't deserve this. I just got lucky." Kellis shook her head. "Luck does not stand against a storm beast. Courage does." Their eyes met, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Respect, trust, perhaps even the beginning of something more. For the first time, Kellis did not feel the weight of doubt when she looked at him. Instead, she felt pride. The human had stood his ground. He had proven himself, not with words, but with action. And though her people still carried suspicion, Khalees knew a change had begun. Daniel was no longer just a stranger. He was becoming part of their story. The days after the storm beast hunt brought an uneasy peace to the Arathi camp. For the first time, whispers about the human softened. Some still doubted him, but others admitted he had fought bravely. Daniel walked among the warriors now, without as many hostile stares. Kellis noticed the change. She also noticed how Daniel carried himself. Though still limping from his wounds, he trained each morning, practicing the spear moves she had taught him. He never complained, never asked for rest. "He learns like one of us," Jaren muttered once, watching Daniel train. His tone was reluctant but not dismissive. Khalees said nothing, but inside she felt a small spark of pride. Yet peace rarely lasted long in Arathan, a warning from the skies one evening. As the twin suns fell behind the horizon, a strange rumble shook the ground. Kellis looked up to see streaks of light tearing through the sky. At first she thought of meteors again, but these moved with purpose. Not falling, but cutting paths across the clouds. Then came the thunder of engines, ships, not one, but many, dark shapes descending from orbit. Their metal bodies reflected the dying light, and their weapons glowed faintly. The camp erupted in alarm. Warriors grabbed their weapons. Elders shouted orders. Kellis's chest tightened. She recognized the design of the ship's raiders. Not human, not Arathi, but outsiders who crossed the stars to plunder weaker worlds. They had no loyalty, no mercy. Daniel stepped to her side, his face pale. "Those aren't my people," he said quickly. "But I know what they are. Pirates, scavengers. They'll burn this camp to ash if you don't stop them." Kellis nodded grimly. "Then we stop them." Preparing for the attack, the Arathi camp moved like a single body. Tents were pulled down, fires extinguished, warriors formed into lines. Children and elders were moved toward the caves near the cliffs. Kellis took her place among the front guard, spear in hand, armor glinting faintly in the firelight. Jaren stood at her left, eyes sharp. To her right, surprisingly, was Daniel. "You should stay back," Kellis told him firmly. Daniel shook his head. "I've fought raiders before. They won't stop until you show them strength. I won't hide while you fight." Kellis wanted to argue, but time was short. The ships were landing, dust rising as they slammed into the earth. The raiders poured out tall, armored figures with weapons glowing in the dark. They advanced with cruel confidence, expecting easy prey, but they had not faced the Arathi. The battle begins. The first wave struck hard. Blasts of energy lit the night, but Arathi shields deflected them, spears flying in answer. The clash of battle filled the plain's roars, shouts, ring of steel. Kellis fought at the front, her spear spinning with deadly grace. She struck down one raider, then another, her movements fast and precise. Beside her, Daniel fought with less skill, but fierce determination. He dodged blasts, using his human instincts to stay unpredictable. He lunged with his spear, striking at weak spots in the raider's armor. At one point, a raider nearly struck Kellis from behind. Daniel saw it first. He threw himself forward, blocking the attack with his own spear. The impact knocked him to the ground, but Kellis spun and finished the enemy with a swift strike. She offered Daniel her hand. He grinned breathlessly as she pulled him up. "Told you? I don't hide." Kellis's silver eyes softened for a heartbeat. "No, you do not." The turning point, the raiders pressed harder, bringing heavier weapons. Explosions rocked the ground, scattering warriors. For a moment, the Arathi line began to falter. "Fall back," Jaren shouted, but Kellis refused to retreat. She raised her spear high and called out to her warriors. "Stand your ground. This is our home." Her voice carried strength, steady and unyielding. The warriors rallied around her, their formation tightening once more. Daniel stood at her side, breathing hard but refusing to step back. He looked at her, and in that glance, she felt something unspoken pass between them. Trust. Together. They charged. Side by side, the next minutes blurred into fury and fire. Kellis moved like a storm, her spear cutting through raiders with swift precision. Daniel stayed near her, watching her movements, adjusting his own to cover her blind spots. It was not perfect, but it worked. She protected him when enemies pressed too close. He warned her when danger came from behind. Their rhythm grew natural, almost as if they had trained together for years instead of days. At one point, a massive raider leader stepped forward, swinging a heavy weapon. Kellis met him head-on, but his strength nearly broke her guard. Daniel saw her stumble. Without hesitation, he leaped in, driving his spear into the raider's side. The beast roared, giving Kellis the opening she needed. She struck true, dropping the leader to the ground. Breathless, Kellis glanced at Daniel. "You fight like an Arathi," he grinned through blood and dirt. "No, I fight like a human, but maybe that's enough." Victory at a cost, the battle stretched long into the night, but slowly, the raiders began to fall back. The Arathi fought with fierce unity, and Daniel's unexpected courage broke the enemy's rhythm. At last, the ships lifted, retreating into the sky with flames at their tails. The camp erupted with shouts of victory. Warriors raised their weapons high, their voices echoing into the night. Kellis stood in the center, her chest heaving, her spear slick with battle. Beside her, Daniel leaned heavily on his weapon, exhaustion clear in his face. Yet his eyes still burned with determination. For the first time, the camp looked at him, not with suspicion, but with respect. He had fought beside them, bled beside them. He was no longer just the human who had fallen from the sky. He was their ally, the quiet afterlater, when the fires of celebration burned. Kellis found Daniel sitting at the edge of the camp. He stared at the stars, his body bruised but his spirit unbroken. She sat beside him in silence. For a long time, neither spoke. The night was quiet except for the crackle of fire and the distant calls of beasts. Finally, Kellis broke the silence. "You could have stayed behind," No one would have blamed you. Daniel shook his head. I couldn't, not after everything you and your people have done for me. I had to fight. Kellis studied him. His face was tired, scarred with dust and blood. Yet there was a strength in him she had never expected from a human. You are not like the stories, she said softly. Not like the humans I was told to fear. Daniel's gaze met hers. And you're not like the stories I heard either. They said aliens couldn't be trusted. But you saved me. You taught me. You fought beside me. I won't forget that. Their eyes held each other for a long moment. Something deep and unspoken passed between them. Respect. Loyalty. Perhaps the first sparks of something even stronger. Kellis looked away, her voice steady but softer than usual. Rest now. Tomorrow, the elders will decide what comes next. Daniel nodded, leaning back against the earth. But as she walked away, Kellis felt her own thoughts heavy in her chest. She had fought against trusting humans all her life. Yet here, in the firelight, sat one who had stood by her side when all others would have fled. And for the first time, she wondered if perhaps the universe had meant for their paths to cross. The battlefield was quiet now, but the silence carried a heavy weight. The warships that had filled the skies were gone, leaving behind only the faint smoke trails of the last fight. Crushed weapons, broken armor, and shattered ground spoke of what had been lost. Yet there was also something new in the Iran energy of hope that had not been there before. Kayla stood on the hilltop, her armor dented and scratched, her hair damp from the rain that had come after the fighting. She looked out over the horizon, her sharp eyes searching for any sign of the enemy returning. But all she saw were groups of survivors, human and alien alike, helping each other gather the wounded. Beside her stood Captain Aaron Hale. His uniform was torn, his arm wrapped in a bandage, but his presence remained steady and unshaken. Soldiers' gaze followed hers, watching the survivors below. They fought harder than anyone expected, he said quietly. Not just because they wanted to win, but because they wanted to stand together. Kayla nodded. For so long, she had resisted the idea of trusting a human, of standing beside one. She had believed they were reckless, fragile, and too stubborn to be allies worth relying on. But Hale had proven her wrong again and again. She remembered the moment when the battle had turned against them. The enemy had launched their strongest assault, trying to shatter the final defenses around the ridge. It had been Hale who had refused to fall back, Hale who had rallied both humans and Kella's people to stand as one. His courage had been like fire, spreading through the hearts of all who had seen it. Now, in the stillness after the storm, she realized something. The war had not only changed the battlefield, it had changed her. The survivors began to gather at the base of the hill. A group of alien warriors approached Kayla, their voices filled with respect. You led us well, one said. Without you, we might have broken. But another added, without the human, we would not have held. The words struck her deeply. Once, she would have felt insulted to hear her people give such credit to an outsider. But now, she felt only agreement. Hale, hearing the words, gave a small smile, but did not boast. It wasn't me, he said. It was all of us, together. The warriors exchanged glances. They were not used to such humility from a human. Yet it made them listen more closely. As the day passed, Kayla and Hale worked together to organize the survivors. They set up shelters, tended to the wounded, and repaired what little technology could still be used. Every time Kayla gave an order, Hale supported it, and every time Hale spoke, Kayla's warriors listened with growing trust. It felt strange to her, this balance, this shared leadership. She had always believed strength came from standing alone, never bending to the will of another. But now she saw that true strength was something else entirely. It was the ability to trust, to share the burden, to fight side by side. That night, when the stars returned to the sky, the survivors lit small fires across the ridge. For the first time in months, they did not burn for warmth, they burned for warmth, for gathering, for peace. Kayla sat near one of the fires, polishing her blade. She saw Hale approach and sit across from her. For a while, neither spoke. They simply Listened to the quiet voices of people telling stories, singing, or just breathing freely without fear. Finally, Hale broke the silence. "You've changed," he said softly. She looked at him sharply, as if daring him to explain. "You don't hide your strength anymore," he continued, "but you don't fight it alone either. You've learned to share it. That's harder than facing any enemy." Kayla lowered her gaze. For the first time, she allowed herself a small smile. "And you, human, you never give up, even when the world is against you. That is why your kind survives." Their eyes met across the fire, and something unspoken passed between them. A bond, forged not by words, but by everything they had endured together. Days turned into weeks. Messages came from distant fronts, news of other battles. Some lost, some won. But the tide was turning. The unity shown at the ridge had spread. Humans and Kellis people were now fighting as one army, not as two. When the enemy returned in smaller raids, they were pushed back quickly. The joint forces stood stronger than before. The ridge, once a place of despair, had become a symbol of hope. Yet Kayla knew the war was not over. There would still be trials ahead. More enemies, more losses, more battles that tested their spirit. But something inside her had shifted forever. She no longer fought against the idea of humans. She no longer resisted the thought of standing beside them. Instead, she embraced it. One evening, as the commanders of both armies gathered to plan their next move, Kayla found herself watching Hale again. Spoke with clarity, with calm, with determination. She realized that the human soldier had become more than just an ally to her. He had become a symbol of what humanity truly was, not fragile, not reckless, but unbreakable. When the meeting ended, she approached him. "You know," she said slowly once, "I swore I would never trust a human. I thought your kind would only weaken us. But now, I see I was wrong." Hale tilted his head slightly, a faint smile touching his lips. "And now?" Kayla took a deep breath. "Now I see that without humans, we would not have survived. Without you, I would not have seen the truth." He did not answer at once. Instead, he offered his hand. A simple gesture, but one filled with meaning. She looked at it for a long moment, then placed her hand in his. It was not just an agreement, it was a choice, the choice to stand together. When dawn broke the next day, the joint army marched once more. Kayla at the front, her armor shining in the morning light. Hale walked beside her, the human banner carried high. Behind them stretched thousands of voices, united in purpose. And as they stepped onto the path of war again, Kayla knew one thing with certainty. She no longer fought against the human soldier. She fought with him, and together they would change the future of two worlds.